In the late 1800s in America, it was a very tough time, especially for farmers and working people. Big companies and banks were getting very rich and powerful, while many farmers and workers were struggling to make a living. The populist movement was like a huge protest movement for the everyday Joe, especially farmers in the Midwest and South. They felt like the system was rigged against them. Their main complaints were there were unfair business practices. They believed that the big railroads and the banks were charging them way too much and taking a lot of their money. So the country's money at the time was tied to gold, which kept the prices low in the country, which actually was not a good thing for the farmers. Most of the farmers they're in debt, just like today's farmers, right? And it made their crops worth less, so they were getting less money when they would sell their product. The farmers really wanted to use silver for to tie the wealth of the country to silver instead of gold, and it would be a lot better for them. They can buy equipment, get more money for their crops, they could pay off their loans. So as far as government corruption, they thought the politicians in DC that they're only listening to the rich and powerful, kind of like today, right? So they weren't listening to the everyday American like you and me. The socialist movement, it was a little different. They're mainly made up of like city workers, people like in unions, and they thought the whole thing of capitalism. They thought it was just the big bad monster, and they believed that the big companies should be owned by the workers and not by the rich people. And they were a little bit more radical than the populists. They both shared the same goal of fighting the rich. So now this is where it takes us to the story of the Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz, it was written in 1900. Right in the middle of this time, it was inspired by the real events. There was a huge downturn in the economy in 1893. Left a lot of people without jobs and homes. There was a lot of political fighting over hey, should we have gold, should we have silver, and it was a big thing in the presidential election of 1896, and that was the biggest issue at the time. So there was a huge uprising of a new political party. It's the People's Party, and it was created by the populists to challenge the other two main political parties. So me personally, I don't believe this, but some people believe that the story of the Wizard of Oz has a hidden message about the Populist Party movement. And here's what they think that each character represents. And again, this is not my opinion. I'm just saying what some people, what they feel. There's a connection. So for Dorothy, they think she represents the average American. She's a good person, honest, and she kind of just feels lost a little bit, right? She doesn't know what to do, how to fix, her problems, and she's lost. For the Wicked Witch of the West, she represents the harsh natural elements, all the things that hurt the farmers, the cost of business, the droughts, all the storms, how dry it is. Okay. And the Wicked Witch of the East, she represents all the bankers, all the capitalists, all the people in the eastern part of the United States. Let's think Wall Street and all that stuff. All those people that pretty much own everything, and these are all the people that the populists were against, right? As for Glinda the Good Witch, she's supposed to represent the Populist Party. She's supposed to be the good person. She's the one that guides Dorothy on her journey, and that's how they see her. So in the movie, they changed her to the Witch of the North. Originally in the book, she's the Witch of the South. Maybe they did it to be less political. I don't know. So for the Yellow Brick Road, it's supposed to represent the gold standard. That's the path that the populists felt was leading the country in the wrong direction. They felt that the gold standard wasn't good for the everyday person and for the farmers, right? Because of their debt. So in the book, they say this Dorothy's silver shoes, they're supposed to be silver, and they're supposed to say, supposed to represent the silver standard, right? And I mean, that's what they believe. Like I said, I don't believe that. The movie did change them to ruby because of the whole new film process they had, and red really stands out. And when you watch this movie, it's a great movie. I probably watched, I'm not even gonna lie, maybe over 50 times, and you know what? I still love that movie. It's great. And the one thing that pops out about the movie is those red slippers. They're amazing. The Emerald City. This is Washington D.C. Oz. It's supposed to stand for for an ounce. You know how gold and silver is weighed. And the Scarecrow represents the American farmer. The Tin Man is supposed to represent the industrial worker. You know how they get used and abused, and they're just taken advantage of. The Cowardly Lion was supposed to represent the populist presidential candidate, William Jennings Bryan, because, he was a good speaker, but they said he was too weak, kind of like the lion, right? And the Munchkins are the common people. And Toto was supposed to represent the prohibitionist movement. And, I was never aware of the connection of the Populist Party and the Wizard of Oz, but now I know. I never knew. Frank Elbaum said he never thought of the Wizard of Oz as something political. He just said it was a story for kids. And that's what I feel. I think that's what it is. I think it just kind of got hijacked. Here are the quotes that really stood out for me. Matilda Jocelyn Gage, she co-founded the National Suffrage Association with Susan B. Anthony. That's pretty cool. That's amazing. She did a lot for women. That's awesome. The last quote that I have is, one evening, Matilda Jocelyn Gage overheard L. Frank Baum telling the fantastical tales to his children. She encouraged him to write the stories, and in 1900, he published The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. That's it, and thank you so much.